All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. Oh, excuse me. Nursing a cold, man. Your boy is back from vacation, Yellowstone in particular, plus Grand Teton. We had a great time. Had a great time getting off the grid and whatnot. Seeing some new things, new places, meeting new people. It's all beautiful. I'm back. I'd love to say I feel recharged right now, but I am still stubbornly getting used to not being in mountain time. So your boy is just a teensy weensy itty bitty a little bit tired, but it is Labor Day when we're recording this, so I was able to sleep in. May it also have been due to the fact that I stayed up until 2:30, close to 3 in the morning? Possible. Certainly possible. But I'm just going to blame it on jet lag until proven otherwise. But hey, we are back. Football season is here. Back to 2 episodes a week. I hope you enjoyed the NFC North preview last week. It's the last off-season episode. We don't got to worry about that anymore. We have got football, baby. We got real games on. NFL Week 1 starting this week. College football just got finished. Well, still waiting on Boston College and Florida State. We'll see how that goes. Given how Florida State played in Week 0 versus Georgia Tech over in Dublin, don't have high expectations for that one. I'm not going to bet on Boston College tonight. But at the same time, wouldn't blame you if you decided to take a little bit of a gander at that plus 16.5. Feel like it's probably going to be closer to that. Feel like FSU might not be that good of a team. Or, hey, maybe Georgia Tech is a really good team this year. And that's why I'm not betting on it. But the point of the matter is we have got football. Everything is exciting. It's new. It's fresh. We're back from a vacation, and we're just hitting right into this here football season. So without further ado, let's just crack into it, folks. So obviously didn't actually post or didn't record an episode for roughly a week and a half, pretty much. I've just been having a running tally of things that happened while I was gone. We got a real big list, so excuse me. Let me just try to get through this in 5 minutes or less. While I was gone, cornerback A.J. Terrell signed a big 4-year, $81 million extension, $65 million in change guaranteed with the Atlanta Falcons, so good for them. Cade York, no longer the Browns kicker. He gets traded to the Commies from the Browns for a conditional late-round pick, I believe. Commies also traded their former first-round pick, Jahan Dotson, to the Eagles for draft compensation, essentially swapped a 5th for a 3rd and received 2 7th-round picks. Not a bad haul for a guy who was ultimately a bust by their calculation. Once again, front office there doing a good job in the new regime. Chiefs signed one of the best, if not the best center in the league, Creed Humphrey, to a 4-year, $72 million extension with $50 million guaranteed. Good for them. Good for Creed. He's gotten paid multiple times in his career, and you love to see it. You simply love to see it. Deron Bland is going to be out 6 to 8 weeks, with a stress fracture in his foot. Cowboys are looking they're looking scary, and not in a way that would scare opponents. I'll just put it to you that way. The Rams, initially Ernest Jones got permission to seek a trade, find a trade partner from the Rams. I guess they didn't want to pay him. Interesting is what it is there. Guess they're just going for the full reset on defense. But the Rams ended up trading Ernest Jones Ernest Jones Pro. Is that like a Call of Duty care package? Call of Duty perk? Don't know why I couldn't think of the word perk right now. But they're trading him to the Vikings. Former Pro Bowl outside linebacker Ernest Jones. Not the Vikings. They're trading him to the Titans. My God, am I tired today. The Rams traded Ernest Jones to the Titans after giving him permission to seek a trade. And this is just... It was the Falcons at the beginning of this offseason. Or as we were going into this regular season. It is now the Rams. If the Rams overs, I need to look at the line once we're done here. I'll get back to you on Thursday. I'll have all my picks Thursday too. Got a couple I'm going to add today, but we'll get to all of them on Thursday here. Overs for the Rams. Basically anyone they're playing outside of maybe the Giants, and even then, Who's to say? Overs, we're just taking them. We're just as long as they're set at a reasonable level, which at some point, make no mistake about it, they will not be. But for like the first couple weeks of the season here, while we're trying to figure out what all these teams are, we're going to be riding the Rams. We're going to be riding the Rams overs, and outside of that, we're going to fill in from there. But the Rams overs, if they're playing a quality offense, that's a must because their offense is spectacular. Their defense is like the exact opposite. So I'm dialed in on that one. Might not work out well for me. I mean, I went 2-2 this weekend on picks that weren't published. So, 500 is better than 0. I suppose that's the thing, but Rams overs, they're a must this year. The Chubbs, Bradley and Nick, both with the Miami Dolphins and the Cleveland Browns respectively. Outside linebacker, running back respectively. You know who these people are. They will both stay on the PUP list to start the season. Will not play until at least week 4. That's at least when they'll be reevaluated. They're eligible to return to the roster. The Chiefs signed wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster to a 1-year minimum deal after he was cut by the Patriots previously. That's an ironic flip right there because I mean the Chiefs are the modern Patriots, and we're not talking about love of country outside of shout out Harrison Butker, I suppose. They're just the Chiefs now. They're just the. Again, my brain can't work right now because I'm so damn tired, but they're just the Patriots now. They're the new dynasty in the NFL. They have the best quarterback. They got a defensive coordinator who's probably past the point of being hired as a head coach anymore. They got Andy Reid as the head coach. It's all just going to fall like dominoes from here. I have no question about it in my mind. I mean, essentially, Steve Spagnuolo right now is acting in the Josh McDaniel role, just on the opposite side of the ball. Obviously, Andy Reid, offensive coach, Bill Belichick, defensive coach. You get the corollary here. I don't have to explain it too much, but Steve Spagnuolo is that guy for Andy Reid for different reasons. But at this point, Steve Spagnuolo is probably past the point of being hired again as a head coach, so you got him around for a good long while. Vikings kind of have a similar situations for some messed up reasons, but similar situation over there, so maybe that'll work out for us too, outside of the quarterback situation. That brings up bad memories, but we move on from there. What's up next? CeeDee Lamb, while I was on vacation, sitting up, looking over Old Faithful, I got a notification across my phone. CeeDee Lamb signed a 4-year, $136 million extension, just a teensy-weensy smidge behind Justin Jefferson on the annual value of that. So, hey, Cowboys paid one of their stars. We'll see about Dak. I have a lot of doubts about whether they'll pay Dak, and that would be one of the craziest free agencies we've ever seen. Maybe the craziest free agency we will see in maybe the next 20 years. If it happens, we're monitoring that. I'll tell you that right now. The Chiefs waived Kadarius Toney. Color me shocked. Who could have predicted this? Oh wait, it was me. And then pretty much everyone else. It wasn't a hard thing to predict. So, yeah, he's no longer with the Chiefs, and we'll see if he ends up with a team this year or not. He's talented enough. He should end up somewhere, but not some great tape out there. I'll just say that. Not great tape out there on the streets. The Browns restructured Deshaun Watson's contract and now have $61 million in cap space for this year. Not talking next year. We're talking this year. And I asked myself, as this came across my timeline, Ayuk trade? Maybe? Is the Ayuk trade coming here? I mean, it seems like a promising sign in that direction if you can clear out the cap space to sign him to a big deal. Nope. The 49ers got a deal done with Brandon Ayuk they get him to a 4-year, $120 million extension. He stays in San Fran. He'll be there for the long term. And, just don't go look at the Browns cap situation over the next couple years as that Deshaun Watson contract nears expiration. Let's just hope that he plays well this year, otherwise he might have a repeat of the Russell Wilson situation. Beautiful that both of those horrible trades are kind of the check coming up due in would-be back-to-back years if Deshaun Watson plays terrible again this year and eventually gets cut. So we got that to look forward to. Love bad things happen to bad people. Love a good dollopy portion of Schadenfreude. Basking in the ills of other people. Some might say that that's toxic. I say sometimes it just feels good. And it's my life. It's now or never. I ain't going to live forever, as the great poet Bon Jovi once said. I swear to God. I mean, you could scoop my brains out with a spoon right now. It's fucking pudding. It's pudding at the moment. But there we go. Yeah. So where we're at right now, lost my train of thought there. Eagles cornerback James Bradbury had, it seems like he's been tailing off towards the end of his career. Now he gets an injury, a quote unquote lower leg injury. It's going to keep him out 6 to 8 weeks. Whatever that means. Maybe it's a high ankle sprain. Maybe it's some sort of knee procedure that I don't know about. I don't know. 6 to 8 weeks, though, for James Bradbury. The defensive line's going to have to step up. They're not as deep as they have been. So the players that they've been drafting, the Jalen Carters of the world, Nolan Smith's going to have to step up big time this year. Defensive line's going to have to step up, especially early in the season, if they want to, live up to billing there. It seems like Vic Fangio's scheme takes a little bit to kind of ease into for new teams, or at least that's the way it was last year with the Dolphins, but seems like the biggest players on the Dolphins, i.e. Jalen Ramsey in particular, did not necessarily get along well with Vic Fangio, so we'll see if that's a little bit different here in Philly. But yeah, it could be rough going in the early season with James Bradbury not out there. Young guys are going to have to step up. That's the bottom line there with that one. And then last one here, crazy one that just came across the timeline as I was just in the midst of travel hell. What else is new in my life? 49ers first round pick from this past draft, Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida, was shot in the chest in an attempted robbery over the weekend, and dude got lucky as hell. I mean, according to his mother coming out of the hospital, yes, you heard that right, coming out of the hospital, missed all internal organs, passed out his back, got about as lucky as you can possibly get. Usually a chest shot is, at the very best case scenario, major injuries that you're on the cusp and then you come back from, or it hits like the heart or a vital organ in there and you're just dead. Like it's scary to have a chest wound like that. Somehow, by the grace of God, though, I'm, less inclined to believe in such things, but by the grace of God, though, the bullet passed through, didn't hit any vital organs. He's out of the hospital now as we speak. I mean, he got out of the hospital 2 days ago as you're listening to this, I believe. Or maybe it was, it was 2 years ago. My brain is just a little, 2 days ago. My brain is just a little bit mush right now, obviously, as you can tell by, everything right now. But, hey, hopefully he recovers. Football is a secondary concern. He'll get back at some point, I assume. And I assume, much like Brian Robinson, he's going to come out to many men. I hope he has a little bit more creativity than that. But you just, it's going to be a fun intro whenever he does come back. He'll probably come back this season. It would appear that way, unless there's some sort of complications that, pop up unexpectedly. Happy for that, because that would have been two tragedies in one off season. Obviously, with Kyrie Jackson for the Vikings dying in a car accident over the off season, and it would have been, this would have been the second one, which would just been, an all-time tragic off season. So glad that didn't happen. Glad it seems like he's going to make a full recovery. With that, though, we are 14 minutes into the podcast, and we have not talked a lick about an actual game. So, buddy, I'm putting my phone to the side for the first time in months. Since the last season, my dudes. And even then, I started looking at the games on my phone instead of just, looking at them on the computer. We're going back to the computer this time. And, boys, it feels good. I'm going to get a quick sip of this Gatorade. It's good stuff. I don't care, Shams Charania. It's football season. So let's get into the game, shall we? We're going to start off with the ACC, and we're just going to rip the Band-Aid right off. You know what? Audible. Texas 50. Houston 55. We are calling an audible. We are going over to the SEC because the number one team in the nation, boy, they proved they were the number one team in the nation, didn't they? Georgia goes into the Georgia Dome against Clemson. And first half was close. I believe it was 6-3 at the half. Georgia was ahead, but both defenses were playing really well. You go into the second half, Georgia comes out and just says, we're not going to make any more mistakes in this game. And you know what? They did not. They blew Clemson out of the water in the second half. Outscored them, if my math is correct, 28-0 in the second half. They win the game 34-3. Carson Beck, not crazy numbers, 278, 2 touchdowns, not crazy yards or anything like that. But it was a classic Carson Beck game where you just you're looking at the game, you're like, okay, he's playing well, he's playing efficiently, he's getting the team down the field. Doesn't seem like he's putting up huge numbers, but then you look up, he's got 278, 2 touchdowns, like wow, and no interceptions at that too. He just doesn't make mistakes. The defense looked nasty. The Clemson offense looked disgusting in its own right, but we'll get to them in just a second. We're talking about Georgia right now, and Georgia looked every bit of the number 1 team in the nation. Ohio State's not that far behind them. Let's all be real here. Ohio State is coming. We're going to talk about them just briefly here in a bit. They played a lower tier opponent. They played Akron, so hard to gauge what that even means at this point. So we'll talk about them a little bit. But Georgia played a legitimately solid defense, if nothing else. The Clemson offense has its problems, and again, we'll talk about that in just a second. But the Georgia defense really showed me. The Clemson defense. Getting all discombobulated in my head here, I apologize. The Clemson defense is one of those units that you can count on pretty much year in, year out. No matter what the offense is doing, the defense is going to have some solid players. They're going to play good defense. They're going to play sound, and you can trust them to kind of keep you in most games. Most games. Not when you're playing the number 1 team in the nation in Georgia. And I'll tell you what, man, the way that Georgia offense just dissected the Clemson defense in the second half, and that was without a full repertoire of their players. I know they had some players suspended. Trevor Etienne was out for the first game with a suspension. The poet Brandon Walker, I believe, on Unnecessary Roughness podcast, stated it as, Georgia has a team in jail that could go toe-to-toe with anyone in the country. That's kind of how it's been working out there this offseason. But that's all to say, they didn't have their full repertoire of players on the offensive side of the ball, and they still dominated a solid Clemson defense. My read on them has been the same pretty much since they were snubbed from the playoffs last season. They are the best team in the nation. They have the best returning quarterback in the nation. And for my money, I'm not putting any money on that because Ohio State does exist, and I am scared of them and losing that money. But for my money, if I were to place a bet, it's going on Georgia. Georgia is just, they're not super far ahead of Ohio State, it would seem. But as far as a total team package, you got great quarterback, really good offense, and the defense looks good this year. It looks really, really good this year. Granted, they were playing against Clemson, so we'll see what happens when they face off against, I think they play Texas at some point this year. Maybe they play Oklahoma. I can't remember exactly if they do or not. But when they face off against a really good offense, we're going to find out a little bit more about them. But in this game, they looked fantastic. I am as high as you could possibly be on the Georgia Bulldogs after week 1. They always seem to set the tone in week 1 in these sorts of games. And they did it once again this year. They did it to Oregon a couple years ago to an even greater extent. But they really embarrassed Clemson in this one. Getting over to that Clemson thing, Dabo Swinney took responsibility for it in the press conference. Looked like his puppy just died, essentially, which I guess will happen when you get outscored 4 touchdowns to nothing in the second half. But yeah, it is all on you, Dabo. The problems with Clemson have been the problems with Clemson for a while. It's the unwillingness to adapt offensively, even when you hire a guy like Garrett Riley to, at least the stated purpose was to modernize the offense and, get a little bit more explosive plays out there. But then you bring Garrett Riley in and you handcuff him with your quote-unquote Clemson offense, which if you're going to do that, you might as well just hire internally in perpetuity instead of just going out and getting Garrett Riley, because if you're going to get Garrett Riley and not have him call the full breadth of what he wants to call, you didn't really hire Garrett Riley. You just paid a whole lot to do exactly what you were doing before, and lo and behold, Clemson's doing exactly what they've done before on, basically since Deshaun Watson left, they've done, since Trevor Lawrence left, they've just been doing the same thing over and over again on offense. Offensive line doesn't look good this year. Phil Maffa is a solid back, but the offensive line does not look good this year. The receivers still look like the receivers have for a long time, pretty much. They've had a tough time getting receiver talent into that program for whatever reason. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense given the receivers that have come out of there under Dabo Swinney. But when the offense is looking like it does, it's going to be a hard sell to a 5-star guy at receiver when you have programs like Alabama putting up like 60 on some hapless FCS team. Ohio State, Ryan Day. Chip Kelly brings in Chip Kelly, and lo and behold, they run Chip Kelly's offense. It's crazy how that works, isn't it, Dabo? So with that all being out there, it's going to be a hard sell for receivers to come to your program. You don't have receivers there, and you dogmatically and exclusively rely on recruiting to fill in the gaps for your team. It's when there's the transfer portal out there, and when all of your competitors are using it, the competitors at the highest level. I'm not talking about just like in the conference or anything like that. I'm talking about the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Georgias of the world, because that's where Clemson used to be. It's where they should be if Dabo would take his hands off the reins a little bit on offense and lean a little bit more, just a little bit more into the transfer portal. You don't have to build a whole team off of it like Deion Sanders is doing over in Colorado. All you really have to do is just go in there and get a couple players that fill, key holes on your roster and roll with that. The base of your program, and this is not changed throughout the course of time in college football, no matter what the current changes are. The base of your program and the core of your program should be players that you brought in as freshmen for the most part. Or they were young transfer portal guys that transferred when they were true freshmen and they've stayed 2-3 years at this point. The core of your team should be guys that have been there before. It's the same way in the NFL with free agency. It's the same way here in college football in the transfer portal era. You can't, in my belief anyways, you can't build and sustain a consistently competitive program just by hunting in the transfer portal every single year and just paying top dollar to go get whoever you want there. It'll make it fun and exciting teams, but ultimately, when times get tough, a lot of guys that are, a little bit mercenaries, for the lack of a better term, they start looking at the exit door a little bit instead of, coming together and trying to win some football games and take this thing all the way to the finish line. So that's, to Dabo Swinney's credit, absolutely true. I think his core philosophy, he just has to adapt with the times. Otherwise, he's going to be a middle of the pack. The Clemson Tigers are going to be a middle of the pack team that consistently underperforms expectations. They'll be ranked highly, but really that's going to stop after this year, I would say, if Clemson doesn't adapt even a little bit, which I have no reason to think that they will, honestly, unless Dabo Swinney really has a change of heart here or this season goes particularly terrible. But unless you utilize the tools that are available to all of the competitors that in the class that you should be, you're just going to be settling for middle of the pack. Maybe you sneak into a playoff here and there as like a 12 seed. Really, you'd have to be an 11 seed because of the stupid G5 automatic qualifier. Don't get me started on that again. But you're not going to be at that upper echelon. You're not looking for a first round bye in all likelihood. You're going to be right there. Not at the Mendoza line. You're going to be over the Mendoza line because Clemson is a quality program still. But you're handcuffing yourself with your inability to adapt and change with the times. So I don't think they're ever going to fire Dabo Swinney unless things get really, really bad there. He's done too much for that program. But the ceiling is going to... Well, no, the ceiling is going to stay the same place. They're just going to not reach that ceiling really ever again if they don't adapt with the times in this program. With that, though, I've spent a long time on that one. My goodness, that was like a whole 10 minutes on that one game. We're going to breeze through some of these real quick. Already on the SEC, so might as well just stick with it here. But yeah, Missouri beat Murray State 51-0. Arkansas beat Arkansas Pine Bluff 70-0. I saw some things in that game where, yes, Arkansas won 70-0. I think they are in for a rude awakening when they get into the conference. Not a hot take, though. I think pretty much everyone has that same read on this team. Oklahoma beat Temple 51-3. Jackson Arnold, 4 touchdowns in that game. Already talked about Georgia Clemson. Texas beat Colorado State 52-0, which Colorado State's not even an FCS team. They're just a group of 5 team, and Texas took them to the woodshed. It was bloody, it was gory, it was uncomfortable to watch. I didn't watch it. Let's be honest here. I was watching different games at the time. However, Arch Manning got his first touchdowns of his college career, first passing touchdown at least of his college career, rushed for another one there, had a cool celebration on the sidelines, I guess. He'll be a star next year, but for right now, Quinn Ewers slung the ball, 3 touchdowns in this game, was basically out of there by halftime because they were just beating the dog shit out of Colorado State. So yeah, they seem to be pretty good. Alabama beat Western Kentucky 63-0. Jalen Milroe hit a couple deep bombs to true freshman, 5-star wide receiver coming in there, and Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams had 2 touches, 2 catches at that, 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's beautiful right there. That's beautiful. And hey, if there's one thing that Jalen Milroe can do, is he can push the ball down the field. And hey, that's what Kalen DeBoer wants to do. So, you know what? It's a good start. Also Western Kentucky. So we'll see what we can get from that. Maybe the funniest score of the weekend here. There's always like 1 or 2 of these that just make you laugh. This one, Ole Miss. I mean, the one time I'm gonna thank you. You did make me laugh, guys. And this one. They hosted Furman over the weekend, and the final score was, well, I'll just put it this way. They hit the over, and Furman didn't score a point. Ole Miss won 76-0. Jackson Dart had 5 touchdowns. Just a splattering. Poor Furman, man. I hope you have success the rest of the season, but boy, Ole Miss, that offense, when they play against bad teams, boy, do they let you know they're playing against bad teams sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't quite work out that way, but when it works out, it looks a lot like this a lot of times. All right, we'll stop here for a little bit. Notre Dame versus Texas A&M. And we'll stay here briefly. I want to give a lot of credit to Notre Dame in this one because this is as tough of a week 1 environment as you can walk into, essentially. They go into College Station. This isn't some rinky-dink neutral site game, not like the game in Vegas last night as I'm talking about this, not like Clemson, Georgia in the Georgia Dome, or Mercedes-Benz Dome. Georgia Dome is dead. I apologize. I apologize for dead naming the site. This was on the road, a true road game. They go on the road to Texas A&M. They go in there, it's tied late, it's, you don't know which way it's going to go. Both defenses are playing out of their minds, but in the 4th quarter, Marcus Freeman's team came out there and dominated in the last 2 minutes or so. They get a touchdown with Riley Leonard, and then they get another field goal to basically ice the thing with a couple seconds left in the game. But so Notre Dame goes in there, 23-13 win. The defense looks dominant. The offense, work in progress, obviously, but you're playing a solid Texas A&M defense. I think you got something to work with in the run game. I think they're going to be a very run-heavy team this year, which I think obviously fits what Marcus Freeman wants to do. Defensive-minded guy, run the ball. That's been a big theme for him really ever since he showed up with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish there. But it seems like the program is starting to get built in his image, and it's almost immeasurable what a win like this does for you in the week 1 of a season. I mean, it sets the tone for the whole year, and the rest of the year they're not playing a whole lot of big-time opponents. They play Louisville. Outside of that might be the last game that they really have a chance to lose this season. I mean, let me just make sure I'm not talking out of pocket here, because there is a chance I am. Yeah, they don't play Ohio State this year. USC they have in the last week of the season. They do play Florida State. They play them at home, and who knows how good Florida State even is this year after what we saw. But why did I think they played Louisville? No, they do play Louisville. They play them in September, so excuse me. They have one more game this September that is a good quality opponent. I guess sneaky Georgia Tech they play in October. That one might be a fun one. But overall, they have a winnable schedule. Like at the very worst, I mean, maybe they go 9-3. Like, that's at the very worst. I mean, I'm looking at next week. They got Northern Illinois. That's a win. At Purdue, that's a win. Or Miami, Ohio, that's a win. Louisville, I think they win. Stanford, I think they win. Georgia Tech, I think they win. Navy, I think they win. Florida State, I think they win. Virginia, do I even need to say anything? I think they win. Army, I don't know why they hate the service academies so much, but they keep beating the shit out of them. They're going to do it again. Maybe, just maybe, they lose that USC game. We'll see how it goes this season. I loved what I saw from Miller Moss last night. We'll talk about them in a bit here, and I'm going to try and speed up after this because we are starting to go long here. This team, I just went through it. There's like one loss maybe on the schedule left. Like, maybe they split the Louisville USC. Like, outside of that, there's a real chance they go undefeated and they wouldn't get a first round bye because they don't have they're not in a conference at the moment. Maybe not even ever, honestly. But excuse me. But they have a schedule where they could get the 5 seed, play the group of 5 opponent in the first round, play the 4 seed in the second round, essentially. And then they're just kind of off to the races. I mean, they basically have a free run right to the semifinal. Well, not free, but as free of a run to the semifinals as you can get if they go through this entire schedule and take care of business. Which, again, if they just buckle down and win the Louisville game, the Georgia Tech game, the Florida State game, the USC game, they are going to be the 5 seed. They'll be undefeated this season because otherwise they don't have another game on that schedule that I think the opponent can win, quite frankly. So I love where this Notre Dame team is going. I think it's going to be a breakthrough year for Marcus Freeman. I don't think you're going to be seeing crazy passing numbers, but I think the running game is going to be solid. Notre Dame always has a good offensive line, and that's not especially, but again, true this year. You lose Joe Alt and a couple other guys, and lo and behold, you still have a really good unit. That's just what Notre Dame has been for my entire life, essentially. So nothing new there. They're just a really solid team. You look on the other side of Texas A&M, though. I mean, they're a year early. Like, they have a good talent roster. Like the defense looks good. It's a good starting point, if nothing else. But the offense, it looks about the same as when Jimbo Fisher was there. My brain, you already know what it is. Looks about the same as when Jimbo Fisher was there. Connor Wegman looked bad. I mean, bad in this game. We'll see what happens when he plays like a little bit more average defense, I suppose, is the best way to describe, someone below Notre Dame. Because Notre Dame's defense flew around. They're spectacular. They are a fantastic team. A fantastic defense in particular at that. But it just feels like they're another couple years away. They got to put in the right personnel on offense. I'm not sure Connor Wigman is long for that job. I feel like there is probably a good chance he either hits the transfer portal or they bring someone in for competition in this offseason that can run Colin Klein's offense a little bit better, because this isn't what we saw from Colin Klein's offense, I believe. I want to say he was at Kansas State. I know he was the quarterback at Kansas State, which is confusing to me, and it makes me think I'm probably wrong on that. But Colin Klein's one of the up-and-coming, young offensive coordinators in this game, and I mean, you took that offense and made it look exactly like Jimbo Fisher's looked last year, which is not a promising sign. So I think Texas A&M is in for some struggles this year. I don't think they're a bad team, but in the SEC, quality teams get swallowed up all the time, and I feel like Texas A&M might end up being one of those teams, unfortunately. Let's keep it moving. Tennessee, another hilarious score. They beat Chattanooga 69-3. They hit the over with Chattanooga scoring 3 points. Nico Iamaleava went 22 for 28 in the first half with 314 yards and 3 touchdowns. Did not play it down the rest of the game, and he didn't need to. Just a drubbing by Tennessee. I think they're going to be really, really good this year. And, man, what's the time? I forgot how hard it was to structure these and not go like a crazy amount of time on them. So we're just going to rip off the Band-Aid here. Miami went to Florida And the line on this game was -2.5. It was one of the bets that I took this week, and I felt really, really good about Miami -2.5 because I just didn't feel great about Florida. I thought Florida might keep it close for a little bit, but, Miami was going to pull away at some point, which ultimately is kind of what happened. But Miami went into Florida, and really after the first quarter, like Florida kept it close for like the first quarter, and then Miami kind of took over. It was a horror show. Just bad stuff from Florida. Miami won 41-17, and it wasn't even that close. Florida scored a garbage time touchdown in the fourth quarter. It was really, really bad. I mean, you had Miami players on the way to the locker room passing by Florida recruits that were on the sidelines saying, "Don't go here. You better come to Miami. I'll see you down in Miami here in a few weeks." Like, the fans were dejected. Miami stole your whiteout game, which is hilarious. I don't know. The visiting team traditionally plays in white, and Miami decided to wear their white uniforms as traditionally happens. I get it for Penn State, but maybe we should have planned a little bit more ahead of this. Ultimately, they played the Uno reverse card on the home field advantage as far as the heat and humidity are concerned. Florida just looked out of sorts. The defense looked overmatched against Cam Ward in that offense for Miami. The offense just didn't look good with Graham Mertz at the helm, and I think a lot of that is credit to Miami's defense because they are a really good unit. Miami's a very good team. We'll talk about them here in just a second. But the one thing that this game kind of showed me and just illustrated to me is that, Billy Napier's done. There's no way he makes it through this season. This was a game that you basically had to win if you're going to keep your job prospects alive. I mean, we don't have to go through the last stretch of games for the Gators in the regular season. It's a fun exercise though. So let's just take a journey with me through scheduling hell. We're going to go through the 9 circles of scheduling hell today. Obviously, excuse me, my goodness. Next week you got Sanford. That should be a win. If it's not a win, boy, you're in trouble because the next week you got Texas A&M at home. Maybe you win that one. Maybe you take advantage of a bad Texas A&M offense. Maybe it's just a low-scoring slugfest. You play some Iowa football, and you get that thing done. Then you go on the road to Mississippi State. I think people are chalking that up as a win. This team is not very disciplined. They have, had mistake after mistake for every year that Billy Napier has been there. This is supposed to be the finished product, and if this is the finished product, and what we saw in the Miami game continues throughout the season, don't necessarily love the quality of the finished product. I'll say that right now. I think they go on the road to Mississippi State and lose that game. I've thought that for a while. I think that week 4, I think we're going to be the Grim Reaper for Billy Napier. I think if he loses that week 4, I don't think he makes it to week 5. So I'm looking at that towards the end of this month. UCF, that they play at home, not a guaranteed win there. I mean, the really solid offensive team this year, and they could have an explosion and beat you there. At Tennessee, that's a loss. Kentucky, that'll be a dogfight. It's at home, so I'm inclined to say win. Then we hit we were crossing through the mild parts of hell to start with. Now we're crossing just straight into the inferno here because they go to start November. November is just a scene out of a horror movie for them. They start with number 1 Georgia. They play at home. That's a loss. They're at Texas. That's a loss. LSU, that's probably a loss. Ole Miss, probably a loss. At Florida State, maybe they stink and you get a win there. But this is, maybe a 6-6 football team, looking a whole lot like 5-7, 4-8. Billy Napier is not going to survive this season. He's going to need a miracle. He's going to need God to come down and personally boop him on the nose with blessings for him to make it through this season. It's a tough time to be a Florida Gator fan, and I can't say I feel sorry for you. I'm sorry. I'm a bad guy. I'm a bad dude, But Miami-wise, boy, oh boy, is Cam Ward the real deal. Holy shit, boys and girls. He went out there, and with the exception of one bad interception in the first quarter we threw across his body, that'll happen when you got a gunslinger with a whole lot of confidence. He's got a cannon of an arm. deadly accurate, great receivers around him. He went for 385, 3 touchdowns, that one bad interception. Outside of that interception, he was flawless in this game, and he looked as confident as a quarterback can look in this offense, coming right in there. He looked like a guy with the understanding that, yeah, I could have gone to the NFL last year, but didn't like my draft grade, so I decided to come back and, run it one more year, and I think that's going to be very profitable for him. I think after this year, he's going to be right there in that top 2 round conversation. He's got a little bit of an age factor to him, so that's going to scare some people off, but didn't hurt Bo Nix, did it? Didn't really hurt him that much at all in this last season. So, and especially in a weaker quarterback draft than last year, if Cam Ward steps up, there's a real chance he's a first-round pick in this upcoming season. He is spectacular, and I think Florida's defense is solid enough. Like, they kind of proved to be consistently solid on that side of the ball. I mean, Cam Ward diced them up. Xavier Restrepo, another guy that might end up, sneaking his way into the first round based on the way that he's played the last couple of years, set the single-season record for receptions last season. This year, he starts off the campaign with seven receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. It was just a drubbing, an absolute drubbing. Miami is the cream of the crop in the ACC. The 2 other contenders that were supposed to be there this year, Clemson, Florida State, both stumbled out of the gates and both don't really look like the teams that they were being hyped up to be. Miami is the cream of the crop in the ACC. They should run the table here going forward, and they will have, I don't want to get too definitive with it. I've utmost confidence that they will have a playoff spot by the end of this year. In fact, after we get off here, I might just go ahead and mosey on over to the FanDuel app and go take a look at what the odds are on that. Responsibly, of course. I am nothing but a responsible gambler here. But I feel more confident that Miami's going to make the playoff than literally anyone else in college football right now, based on the conference they're in. Like, Utah I felt pretty good about, but they're also in the Big 12. I mean, we're obviously excluding, like, Georgia, Ohio State, stuff like that. You're not going to get great odds on those teams to make the playoff anyways because they were already expected to make the playoffs coming into the year. Miami ranked at 19, might get some good odds on that, and I feel, about as sure as you can that Miami is going to make the playoff this year, unless something just out of nowhere happens. Lord forbid, you don't want anything terrible to happen injury-wise or anything like that. Miami is the real deal this year. They got talent up and down that roster. Mario Cristobal has consistently stacked classes that are up there with the best that Miami has ever had. And that's including the years back in 2000, 2001 where they were just a juggernaut of a football team. That's like straight up, as far as evaluation coming out of high school is concerned, most talent top to bottom of any classes that Miami's ever had. The last 2, in fact, were both classes that were highest that Miami's ever had. And they're hitting the transfer portal hard, too, as you can see with Damian Martinez, who they picked up. He's an absolute stud back there. He's a real unique mix of size and speed. A little bit of quickness in there, too. I mean, he's like 230 pounds, got burst to him. I think he's got a real NFL future. And playing behind a really solid Miami offensive line. Boy, this Miami team, especially with the defense, kind of really just being the strength of the football team over the last couple of years. Now they're going to be, playing more of a supporting role to Cam Ward. This team's got playoff run written all over it, and I love the Miami Hurricanes this season. I was tentatively in on them coming in, but seeing what Cam Ward did against Florida, I am all in on the Hurricanes this season. It's going to be a fun one. Just watch out for the U fans, man. They're something. They're something else, man. But we'll keep it moving here. I want to do a quick shout out to Vanderbilt because, I don't know if like 90% of analysts who looked at this Virginia Tech Vanderbilt game thought Vanderbilt even had a shot to win. Vanderbilt was, a double-digit dog. I think they're like a 2-touchdown underdog in this game. They come in, dominate for most of the game, kind of, fall back in the fourth quarter, thought they were really going to do a Vandy thing there as I was watching it live. But ultimately, Diego Pavia looks really, really good. Looks a lot like he did at New Mexico State. He was either New Mexico or New Mexico State. I can't remember which one, but he was their transfer portal quarterback that they brought in this year. He looked really good, very elusive, very improvisational in his play style, brought a little bit of an X factor to him. He brings them back in the fourth quarter from down 7. They tie it. They win it. They win it in overtime. It was a hell of a game. Probably the game of the weekend this past weekend. And Vanderbilt got the win. That's good for them, man. Maybe they're going to be better than we expect them to be. Hey, you bring in a good quarterback, and you can kind of elevate the level of play in your program pretty easily just by virtue of that guy being there. And maybe they did that with Diego Pavia. Maybe Vanderbilt's not going to be that bad of a team. I mean, they're playing the SEC, though, so temper your expectations. But, hey, maybe Vanderbilt won't be a total just, check box as far as a win on the schedule every single week. Maybe they get one here and there, and I would love to see it. We're not playing them this year, so we, being Mississippi State, are not playing them this year, so I don't really have a whole lot of reservations on that side of things. Hope they do well. I mean, it's like the Browns and who's texting me? I'll look at it here in a sec. It's like the Browns and the Lions up until like recent history when they started being good. You're kind of a bad person if you root against them and you don't have like a vested interest like divisionally or anything like that. So yeah. Way to go for Vanderbilt. Little golf clap for them. Let's hope they continue this throughout the season. There's also a real chance that Virginia Tech was way overhyped and they're not as good as people were saying they were. I mean, Kyron Jones got an arm. He looked good at times, but was inconsistent. The defense struggled mightily with that Vanderbilt offense, specifically Diego Pavia. They had no answer for throughout the entire game. You got to have some worry if you're Virginia Tech. Really, the whole ACC is looking just stanky booty cheeks this year. They are not looking good at all. Miami, feels like Miami's going to walk through that conference. Might be a little bit premature. Might be some overreaction from week 1, but it just feels like they're the only team that looks good, and they're the only team that doesn't have like clear, well-defined flaws. The rest of the ACC has that, so it's going to be tough sledding for Virginia Tech. It's going to be tough sledding for Florida State. It's going to be tough sledding for Clemson this year, and we'll see if this is the last year the ACC is even a conference. That's a real possibility, and I'd say probability after this year. South Carolina, got in a dogfight with Old Dominion. 23-19 was the final score there. This was... Boy, South Carolina might be the worst team in the SEC. That's what I got from this weekend. South Carolina might be really, really bad. Arkansas did what they were supposed to do against their FCS team. Mississippi State did what they were supposed to do. Vanderbilt did what they were not supposed to do, and they won in that game, which is even more of a credit to them. It feels like there was only one team in the SEC outside of Florida who played a really good team that really just kind of shit the bed, and South Carolina did it without actually losing the football game. I feel like they're going to be real bad this year. I think they're going to be real bad. All credit in the world to Old Dominion, but South Carolina, boy, if you're Shane Beamer, you might want to be, checking the real estate market, checking housing prices, looking at Zillow in your area, seeing what the house might sell for, because it feels like that might be on the horizon if you don't play well this year. All right, so last one we got a couple in the SEC, but I'm just going to breeze through these real quick. Mississippi State won 56-7 over Eastern Kentucky. I'll keep this brief. Offense looked really good. Defense looked suspect, as I thought. D-line's going to have some issues. Secondary's going to have some issues. Offense looked really good, though. It's Eastern Kentucky, so temper expectations there. Not sure what we can really glean from that. Kevin Barbay scored 50 on one of these teams last year. People forget. So it looked different, though. There were explosive plays down the field. I love Kevin Coleman. The returner for Mississippi State brought him in the transfer portal from Louisville last year. Former 4-star guy coming out of high school. He looked... he had some juice to him. He's a really good returner, a really explosive player. We were able to use him down the field a couple times in the offense as well. Really, the team looks exactly how I thought and hoped they would. It's week 1, but they looked exactly how I thought they would. Shaky defense, although they did give up 7 points, so credit to them there, but shaky looking defense personnel-wise, but the scheme looks better than last year. Offensively, looks like they're going to be able to score some points this year, so I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. We'll find out next week when they go on the road to Arizona State. I'm scared. Auburn, they beat Alabama A&M 73-3. Peyton Thorne threw for 4 touchdowns. Good for him. Kentucky won 31-0 over Southern Miss. I don't know how they keep tricking quarterbacks to go to this college, but Brock Vandagriff is there now. I guess he had 3 touchdowns, but you expect to score more than 31 against Southern Miss. I will just go ahead and say that right now. But they're 1-0 this year. Really, one of the games of the weekend, I think actually the game of the weekend, come to think of it, USC went down to Las Vegas to play LSU, and boy, was that a show, man. I mean, really, both defenses, honestly, before I get to the offenses in the quarterbacks, because that was very exciting. As far as the defenses are concerned, both of those teams looked like they hired the right guy. I think Blake Baker looked really good in his first game as the LSU defensive coordinator, and Danton Lynn, I think is Danton Lynn is how you pronounce it, I want to say. I should probably look that up, but I digress. Danton Lynn with USC now, he's with UCLA last year. They coached him to, I believe, best or second best defense in the Pac-12 last year. He comes over to USC, and there's a clear difference in this game. Like, they were tackling, they weren't missing tackles. They were still giving up big plays. They were moving between the 20s just because LSU's offense, or really Garrett Nussmeier in particular, is looking so good. And they were basically just telling the corners, look, we are not going to get beat deep. You play off like 7 to 10 yards pretty much every snap and just give them the underneath. We don't even care about the underneath. Don't let them beat us over top. And once it got down condensed into the red zone, it worked out to where they got off the field on multiple occasions. They start building momentum. They, right off the bat, they get a goal line stop there on 4th down to get, 0 points out of the drive for LSU. And they turn that into, some more momentum throughout the rest of the game. Really, the USC defense from last year is not holding this LSU team. I'm not even talking about the LSU team with Jaden Daniels and all the receivers they had in that team. I'm talking this LSU team. USC would have had 40 scored on them last year. They gave up 20. USC won the game 27-20 in this game. And it's a huge credit to Danton Lynn's defense on USC. I think they made a fantastic hire there. I think LSU made a great hire, but they just went against a Lincoln Riley offense with another really solid quarterback. And you know what? Let's just talk about it. Miller Moss, I mean, he didn't have huge touchdown numbers, only 1 touchdown in this game. Again, big time credit to Blake Baker. I think he's going to be really good there at LSU. But as far as, yardage wise, 378 in this game. He was out of his mind. Led a 2-minute drive. It was like a minute 40 left when LSU scored the game-tying field goal in this game. I was hoping they'd go to overtime because I bet on the over at 64.5, and I had like a little sliver of hope. Unfortunately, Miller Moss just took him right down the field in that time, and they were really just setting up for a game-winning field goal with a couple seconds left. Woody Marks, former Mississippi State product, shout out to him, glad he did this to LSU in particular, takes the knife out of the sheath, tells Brian Kelly, shh, and then just right into the chest. Just 13 yards out, gets the score to win the game. USC wins it 27-20. Fireworks, confetti, all that stuff. Let's hit up the casinos. We're in Vegas. It was a impressive showing from USC in a way that I didn't think they would do. I don't think a lot of people thought that they would win this game. I thought LSU would win this game, frankly. And I thought they would end up winning it by a comfortable margin just because that USC defense is a work in progress. But it is a work in progress. Don't get me wrong on that one. There were still some holes. They still did, give up a lot of big plays between the 20s just by run after the catch and stuff like that. They have some ways to go, to say the least. However, with what I saw, there is so much improvement just based on the virtue of bringing a couple players in the portal and hiring Danton Lynn as the defensive coordinator. It was a really impressive game from USC. If the defense plays like that all season, not every defense is going to be as good as LSU's this year too. I think just by virtue of bringing in Blake Baker with the talent they already have, they're going to be a really solid unit this year at LSU. USC is going to play some teams to where they can take more advantage of them than they could against LSU. And Miller Moss is going to have a huge year. Kyron Hudson had one of the craziest catches you're going to see in this game. I mean, just like reaching back behind his head, one hand, had to recollect the ball before it hit the ground. Play on the field stood after review, all that stuff. It was awesome to see. He made a couple big-time catches. He made a one-hander late in the game and got a targeting penalty on LSU for that one that essentially iced the game for him. That's kind of what set them up for that Woody Marks touchdown late in the game. He was spectacular in this game. Zachariah Branch is a absolutely horrifying player to think about covering. Quick as all hell. I mean, as dangerous after the catch as, really anyone in the country this year. He's a stud. Lake McCree looked good. Jacoby Lane, big body wide receiver, caught the only touchdown in this game. Deuce Robinson, actually, freshman tight end, 5-star freshman tight end. At that, he got 2 receptions for 49 yards. He's going to be an absolute stud in this offense. The USC offense still looks really good. If their defense can just be average, they're a playoff contender right away. Don't care if it's in the Big Ten. They are, with how good that offense is, if the defense is just average, they're going to be right in the thick of this thing at the very end of it. I love what I saw from USC. Even so with LSU, though, Garrett Nussmeier had a really good day in his own right. 29 of 38, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, got a late interception, just trying to make some things happen on that final drive when he basically had no hope in the world, basically needed a miracle to have anything happen, and quite the opposite happened at that. So outside of that, he was flawless in this game. He rarely missed a pass. A lot of his incompletions were either throwaways, or drops. We had like one drop, which I guess was a drop. It was a tip from the defense, so credit to there on USC's side. But he rarely threw an off-target pass. It's just, they was all dink and dunk because they were just taking what the USC defense was giving them. They were playing 7 to 10 yards off because they were so worried about that down the field threat that they just never pushed the ball down the field. They just, dinked and dunked, got their way down the field, and they get to the red zone. Offense couldn't draw anything up, and ultimately they get taken off the field. I think a lot of this has to do with their offensive coordinator. I forget his name, Mike Denbrock. That's who their offensive coordinator was last year. He went over to Notre Dame. Seems like a lateral move. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but hey, you do what you got to do if you're Mike Denbrock. I assume they threw a bag at him, or maybe Notre Dame is his dream job. I don't know. Maybe he's big into our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I have no idea whatsoever. But his absence on this LSU team was felt in that red zone, I feel, and not just his absence. Jaden Daniels' absence is felt in the red zone because Garrett Nussmeier, serviceable enough with his legs. You're not going to be leaning on him like you were leaning on Jaden Daniels to provide a run game for you. It's going to have to come a lot more from the backfield this year. And, hey, John Emery looked good throughout this game. They had some good rushes otherwise. But really, outside of John Emery, it was mostly just like meh. Like Xavier Thomas had one carry for 5 yards. He was the only one above 4 yards a carry that had more than one carry in this game. It just was kind of a clunky start for the LSU offense. The defense looked good. That's the positive there. Harold Perkins looked like he's back. Everyone looks like they're in a scheme that, kind of accentuates their talent a little bit more, puts them in position to succeed, which is good on that front. Offensively, they're going to have to find a way to finish off these drives in the red zone. Garrett Nussmeier is good enough to put the ball where he wants to put it. It's just, you got to scheme some stuff up when it comes to the red zone. You got a quality offensive line. You got good receivers still. That's really never going to be not the case at LSU as far as I'm concerned. They're always going to have receivers. They got a great offensive line there. You've got to be able to scheme something up in order to get into the end zone and finish off these drives because USC's defense is improved. Don't get me wrong here, but if you can't finish against USC, what's going to happen when you face off against an Alabama, when you face off against a Georgia or someone along those lines, when you face off against Texas for that matter? It's going to be a rude awakening. And I don't know, man, this LSU team this year, Brian Kelly might be one of the sneaky hot seats. I don't think he should be fired. I think he's done a fine enough job, but it's been concerning enough on the defensive side of the ball up until this year that I would understand why some LSU fans would want to fire him. I had one in my phone. Just last night, actually, as I'm recording this, telling me exactly that. But this LSU team, I think they're good, but an SEC that is so overpowering this year, you needed to win this game. There's a real chance they go like 7-5 this year. Like it could really happen just based on how crazy the SEC is this year. They're not a 7-5 team. If they were in the ACC, they'd be right there with Miami to win the whole damn conference. I mean, let's not get this twisted here. It's just the SEC is so good. Like, they could drop 4 games in conference like that, like out of nowhere, essentially. There's going to be 1 or 2 teams that do that, too, by the way. Like, there's going to be some teams that underperform expectations that you thought, oh, man, they were going to be really good going into this season, and it just doesn't work out that way. Okay, I need a time check here, man. Holy shit, we're already at an hour. We gotta breeze through this. I'm gonna tighten this up for coming weeks. This is a lot. I gotta really dial in here going forward. We'll just quickly go through the ACC. Boston College, Florida State play tonight. I would assume Florida State wins that. 16.5. I'm not so sure about that one. That was all from week 0, so we'll skip past that. Western Carolina, took NC State down to the wire pretty much. 38-21. NC State, another team that did not look as good as we were expecting with a new quarterback. We'll see if they get better in week 2, but they might be the second best team behind Miami this year, and that's kind of saying something about the ACC. Wake Forest beat North Carolina A&T 45-13. North Carolina eked one out against Minnesota 19-17. They lose Max Johnson for the year, their starting quarterback. I don't know what they're going to do there, but probably just lean a lot more on Omarion Hampton. I feel sorry for that kid's legs going to the next level, but it is what it is in this situation. Duke looked sloppy, but they beat Elon 26-3. Malik Murphy got 291, but only 26 points in this one. They're a work in progress. They are Duke, so keep expectations tempered. TCU and Stanford played an exciting one. TCU won 34-27, but it was back and forth the whole game. TCU ends up winning it by 7, and Stanford's 0-1 this year. Might have been one of their only opportunities to win a game, if we're being honest. Maybe I'm being a little too hard on them. I don't know. Already talked about those. Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt, talked about that. Louisville beat Austin Peay 62-0. Did exactly what you're supposed to see. Tyler Shuck had 4 touchdowns. It was also Austin Peay. Pitt beats Kent State 55-24. I lost a little bit of money on this one. I thought Kent State would keep it closer. But hey, maybe Pitt's good this year. We'll see. It was Kent State at the end of the day, though, so I don't know if we can really take much from that. A game I did make money off of, Syracuse 38, Ohio 22. Ohio just by the skin of their teeth covers that spread for us. Thank you very much. Kyle McCord, first game with the Syracuse Orange. Big game for him. 354, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He played really, really well. You got to worry about that Syracuse defense with the Ohio running back Tyus going for 203 and 2 touchdowns. That's going to be on the NFL tape, or at the very least the tape that the NFL guys look at if deciding when they're going to draft him, because that's a Power 5 defense he's going against. You got to worry about that if you're Syracuse. Obviously, year 1, new coach. You take it day by day on that one, if nothing else. Cal beat UC Davis 31-13. Another team that's probably not that good this year. Virginia beat Richmond 34-13. That's good for them, I suppose. Might be the only win they have this year. Georgia Tech beat Georgia State 35-12. Who knows? Who knows how good Florida State is? Who knows how good Georgia Tech is? They didn't blow you away, though. Georgia State is one of the better FCS teams, so take that for what it is. Hey, maybe Georgia Tech is good this year. I don't know. We'll find out. And then SMU beat Houston Christian, not Houston Baptist anymore, Houston Christian University, 59-7. No disrespect to the Houston Christians out there. Disrespect to all the other Christians. That's not true. I love you guys, Christians. I think you're good people. I don't know why I just said that. Let's go to the Big 12, shall we? We're going to try and breeze through this. Not a whole lot of good games in the Big 12 anyways. Utah beat Southern Utah 49-0. Kansas beat Lindenwood, which I'm not sure is a real school, but, research has suggested it is. 48-3 in that game. Jalen Daniels not looking fantastic in his season debut, but Devin Neal did, so it does not matter. UCF beat New Hampshire 57-3. KJ Jefferson also not looking fantastic in his debut, but RJ Harvey did. Not debut, he's been there for a while, but you get what I'm saying. North Dakota State went on the road to Colorado. Kind of took them down to the wire there. Final score was Colorado 31, North Dakota State 26. And buddy, oh boy, I'm eyeing up the Colorado overs because that defense did not look good, and the offense does look good. Travis Hunter in particular is a freak of nature. Absolute freak of nature. I mean, he had 3 touchdown catches in this game. Shedeur Sanders had 445 yards through the air in this game as well. But Travis Hunter playing on both sides of the ball and being a dominant wide receiver. I mean, he made that last touchdown catch he had, he basically just picked it off the defender's back. It was incredible. So the offense looks good. I like the offense. Defensively, not great. And you know what that means, folks? What's the formula? Great offense, bad defense. We're taking the overs. That being said, I'm a wait on the line, but I feel very good about Nebraska against Colorado next week. I think they're going to thump them. Probably won't take the over on that one, too, because Nebraska's defense is really, really good. So we'll stay away from that one, but going forward past that, boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, we have got some work to do, folks. We have got some work to do. Okay, so already talked about TCU Stanford. Penn State looked dominant against West Virginia. The hiring of Andy Kotelnicki might be the one move that puts Penn State over the top this year because the offense did look really, really good. And it was kind of hampered a little bit by the weather, but you could just see there was so much more explosive potential in this Andy Kotelnicki offense. Obviously, coming over from Kansas last year, you saw the, not so great offensive numbers from Jalen Daniels without Andy Kotelnicki there. I'm not saying that's completely correlated. I'm not saying it was he was a scheme quarterback over there, but it goes to show you that, Andy Kotelnicki's a really, really solid offensive coordinator. I think Penn State had a 20-yard play from scrimmage 8 times last year. They had 4 in this game alone. I love what I'm seeing from Penn State. So you know what you're going to get from the defense. They're going to be one of the best units in the country every single year. If the offense can just come together, and if Drew Aller can look like he did in that game against West Virginia, watch out in the Big Ten because Penn State is coming. They are absolutely coming, and they're coming hard. Oklahoma State beat South Dakota State 44-20. Again, probably the best FCS team. I think they won the FCS National Championship last year in South Dakota State, and Oklahoma State just came out and thumped them pretty much. Ollie Gordon got 27 carries for 104 yards and 2 touchdowns in his first game in his journey to hopeful Heisman candidacy. So not a bad start there. You just hope he stays off the drunk driving. Also, not 4 yards per carry, so living up to the billing of his punishment from Mike Gundy of just running him into the offensive line, I suppose. Kansas State beat UT Martin 41-6. Avery Johnson is a fast little boy over there with Kansas State. Arizona, you want to talk about a team I'm taking the overs every week, Arizona. Oh my God. They played New Mexico. The final score was 61-39. Get these numbers right here, man. Noah Fafita was 422 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Really good game, coming against New Mexico. You expect that. The real craziness is when we take a look at Tet McMillan, the star wide receiver that did not follow. Both these guys, by the way, Fafita and McMillan, did not follow Jed Fish over to Washington. They stayed at Arizona. Get these numbers from Tet McMillan. 10 receptions. Okay, that's a good game for him so far. 304 yards. Let me say that again. 10 receptions, 304 yards, only 1 touchdown, but no, 4 touchdowns, I'm blind. At all 4 touchdowns from Noah Fafita. So 10 receptions, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns in game 1 from Tet McMillan. That's how you kick off a possible Heisman candidacy right there. I don't care if it is New Mexico. That's how you kick it off right there. Looking at just that spectacular play. If he can do that all season, maybe he puts himself in the conversation. At the very least, he's in the conversation as a first-round pick because Ted McMillan is a monster, an absolute monster. He was a monster last year. He's going to be a monster this year in the Big 12. Arizona's defense giving up 39 points, though, and that offense being so good. I mean, this might be, the Big 12 might be the land of the overs this year between Colorado and Arizona this year, man. And when they play each other, I don't care where the line is set. I don't care if it's 81 over-under. I'm taking the over because, my goodness, Arizona is going to be, they're going to be just an ATM printing out money. They're going to be the Fed just printing out money and diluting the dollar. I'll tell you what right now. So we're watching Arizona this year. Early on in the season, we're just looking for basic, simple bets while we figure out who these teams are. I think we got a pretty good idea right now for Arizona as far as the overs are concerned. Pretty good idea for Colorado. We're setting up the base here, folks. We're setting up the base for profitability going forward here while we figure things out. Cincinnati, 38, Towson, 20. Cincinnati is bad. What else is there to say? Iowa State didn't look great against North Dakota. They won 21-3. They got the job done. But expected a little bit more out of them. Rocco Becht, they're playing Iowa next week, so they better shape up. Otherwise, it's going to be like a 10-3 final score, and they're going to lose that game. Not a great initial showing from them. Still, won the game. Long season ahead of them. Really good coach. I have faith in the program. Baylor won against Tarleton State, 45-3. Daquan Finn looked shaky, had 2 interceptions, 2 touchdowns. He's a big transfer portal pickup for him out of Toledo. I think he'll end up being good, but kind of a shaky first start there. You want to talk about a team that's just set up to fail this year. Houston got beat by UNLV 27-7. They didn't just get beat by UNLV. They got annihilated by UNLV. And, boy, Willie Fritz, best of luck to you. Probably shouldn't have hired Kevin Barbet as your offensive coordinator. I think you're kind of figuring that out now. But, oh boy, it might be a long year for Houston. I think they're the worst team in this conference by far. That's even including Cincinnati. At least Cincinnati won their tune-up game. Texas Tech, got in a dogfight with Abilene Christian. It did a crazy game here. 52-51 the final score. Abilene Christian's quarterback, McIver, fun name, but he goes for 506 yards and 3 touchdowns. Baron Morton, the starting quarterback for Texas Tech, he goes 378, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions thrown in the game. Taj Brooks, the running back for Texas Tech, goes 27 for 153 and a touchdown. Josh Kelly, wide receiver for Texas Tech, had 156 yards on 10 receptions. Really just big numbers all around right here for the for both of these teams. Wild game. Texas Tech wins the game. But maybe another team we need to look at as an over machine this year. I'm not quite as sold on their offense, though. Baron Morton going for 5 touchdowns, not a bad indicator of some good stuff there. If that made any sense whatsoever, the way that I phrased that. But hey, maybe another team we look at. Overs might just be the way we profit here early in this season. Might be betting a few less spreads and a few more overs, just based on the situations, though. We'll get to it here in a second. My first 2 picks of the season are both not overs, famously. Okay, so we got BYU winning 41-13 over Southern Illinois. Arizona State beat Wyoming 48-7. I am scared. Let's move on to, what do we got next? The Big Ten. Big Ten here. Rutgers beat Howard 44-7. This just in, Rutgers hates black people. It's a joke. Howard's an HBCU. So, obviously already talked about that. Illinois won 45-0. Michigan State looked like poo-poo dog shit against Florida Atlantic, but they win 16-10. Aiden Childs did not look good in that game. Did not look good at all. Wisconsin won against Western Michigan 28-14. kind of a dogfight. You got to be scared of looking at Tyler Van Dyke and the way that he played, thinking you might have just got another dud transfer portal quarterback again, but you get a win nonetheless. Ohio State struggled early, but ultimately pulled away 52-6 against Akron. The defense looks fantastic. I mean, Jeremiah Smith, you might not know his name now because he wasn't on the big stage this week. But Jeremiah Smith was the number 1 player in the last recruiting class. He's a true freshman, wide receiver there. And he might be the best one in this run of wide receivers they've had I'm talking from Marvin Harrison to Olave to Garrett Wilson for that matter. They're saying Jeremiah Smith might be the best one of the bunch. I think he's already the best wide receiver on this team as a true freshman. In the very first game, he gets 2 touchdowns, 6 receptions, 92 yards from Will Howard, who kind of rounded into shape as the game went along. This Ohio State team, man, I think they're pretty much the only team that's even remotely on the level of Georgia this year. I said it before, I'll say it again. They are staring daggers at each other across the dance floor right now. A brawl is going to happen. You just don't know when it's going to, and those two teams are going to be right at the center of it. Excuse me. I got to get through this. We're getting low on battery. Oregon looked concerning against Idaho. Credit to that big boy coach that Idaho has. He did a great job over there, but 24-14 in game 1 for an Oregon team that usually facing a team like Idaho, they're blowing them out of the water. I mean, they played Portland State last year and scored 80 on them with Bo Nix. Dylan Gabriel did set a record for completions as an Oregon quarterback, 41 for 49 in this game, I want to say. We got to be concerned with the only 24 points. Maybe they lean a little bit more on the run game, but that the offense needs to round into shape if they're going to compete with Ohio State. I think it's pretty clear at this point Ohio State they're going to be a juggernaut this year. Already talked about Penn State. Michigan, they beat Fresno State 30-10. Watch out for the Bulldogs, man. You never know what's going to happen with the Bulldogs. But yeah, it was not an ideal game 1 for Sharon Moore. I again remain, having some reservations for Sharon Moore as a head coach. The defense is going to be good, though. I mean, I have all the belief in the world in Wink Martindale to just bully college offenses. And didn't quite look that way in this game. It's going to round into form as the season goes on. It's a complex defensive scheme with a lot of blitzes, but whenever it gets in there, it's going to be lights out. I'll tell you that right now. Iowa scored 40 points against Illinois State. Cade McNamara had 3 touchdowns, 40-0. Are you kidding me? They still hit the under, which is hilarious. They're playing Iowa State next week, and I'm not sure there's a force on this earth that could stop me from betting the under on that one. But 40 points for Iowa? Hey, shout out to them. They had a running back go over 100 yards. I mean, almost touched 120. By God, on 11 carries, no less. My goodness, is the Iowa offense turning into something here? Maybe I do stay away a week. It was tongue in cheek, but I am actually kind of convincing myself not to bet on that one right now. We'll come back to that. Maryland beats UConn 50-7. Ho hum. Purdue won 49-0 over Indiana State. Indiana beat Florida International 31-7. Walk-on sitting in the stands for that one, by the way, for Indiana. Weird move from Kurt Cignetti out of the gate, but it is what it is. Nebraska, they took care of business versus UTEP, 40-7. Dylan Raiola looked solid in that one. He's going to face off against Colorado this week, and I'm looking for a breakout game in that one. Northwestern looked like Northwestern again. They're 13-6 over Miami of Ohio. Maction came to your town on that Saturday, baby. That's a classic Maction score right there. UCLA eked one out against Hawaii. I should have been on Hawaii in that game. I think they really messed up in hiring Deshaun Foster as the head coach over there at UCLA. Kind of similar to what Mississippi State did with Zach Arnett last year. Not sure about that one. And Washington didn't look fantastic, but they took care of business against Weber State. Will Rogers went 250 for 1 touchdown. I would say I miss you, but it was best for everyone to move on in this situation. Okay, is there anyone I'm missing? Any conference I'm missing here? Anyone? Pac-12. Yeah, let's look at the Pac-12, shall we? Washington State beat Portland State. It's always a tradition for a Pac-12 team to blow out a hapless Portland State team. 70-30, though. Maybe Washington State we look into for the overs as well. Oregon State 38, Idaho State 15. And it just goes to show you how dead this conference is, because I didn't even think for a second about either of these teams, which is sad, but it is what it is. With that, though, I think that's pretty much it. That's a cool hour 20. We breezed through that last little bit there. Hit the high notes for the most part. Yes, my buddy Zach, who you may know if you've been around here long enough, he sent me some pictures from our vacation. Man, I want to go back. Everyone knows the feeling the day after. I mean, this is basically the day after I got done with vacation here, Labor Day. Everyone knows that feeling the day after, where you're just like, I need to go back. I need to get back into the wilderness. My goodness. But we'll end this thing off with a couple picks that I have made already. Haven't looked at the NFL slate, but did a quick poop and scroll at the college football slate. I got a couple for you right now. So let's pop this bad boy open. First off, Texas going on the road to Michigan next week. I got them -6.5. I think they're gonna handle business versus Michigan. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. Maybe it's going to be a little bit less scoring, but I think Texas takes care of business to that one. They do comfortably. And I also got Tennessee -7.5. I don't love paying for that extra point. Don't love that at all. But I do think they handle business versus NC State, and I don't think it's particularly close. So those two. Texas -6.5, Tennessee -7.5. I'm adding those to the bet slate here, and there will be more to come on Thursday, I suppose. Didn't do a preview. Maybe I should go back and do a preview. I mean, we're at an hour 21, so yeah. Let's just quickly run through the games for next week here. Give me a second to pull that up. Look at week 2. Okay. So, yeah, let me just kind of scroll through here. Arkansas is going on the road to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's favored -8.5. Might be looking at that one. Kansas is playing Tulane. Baylor's playing Utah. Iowa State's playing Iowa. The over-under is 35.5. Vegas already knows, damn it. I can't take that under. It's too low. Vegas already gets it. They've been burned too many times by this Iowa team. I respect that. Outside of that, is there any big matchup? Oh, yeah, Colorado's playing Nebraska. ESPN's got this line at 7. And you know what? I'm gonna do a quick look-see. Do a quick look-see doodle-doo here. See if I can find it. You know, bear with me for just a moment while I pull this up. Colorado. Yeah, FanDuel still has it as 7.5. If it's at 7, though, I'm taking it. I'm taking Nebraska -7 in this game. I just think they're a better football team. I think they're going to dominate Colorado. So add that as well. Nebraska -7. I'll find that after this to go ahead and put that on the slate and officially bet it. Oklahoma's playing Houston -29. Big spread, but boy, is Houston bad. So I might end up taking that too. Long Island is playing TCU. I don't even know why I said that. Mississippi State's playing Arizona State. I once again reiterate that I am scared. But if the line moves in Arizona's favor, I might bet on Mississippi State in that one. Let's look at the ACC, I suppose. Georgia Tech's playing Syracuse. That might be a fun one. Georgia Tech's favored by 3 right now. I don't have a great feel on that game, so I won't bet on that one. That might be a fun one. I like that. I like that. I like the makeup of that. Also, I forgot Justice Haynes, former Alabama running back. He transferred over to Georgia Tech, 3 touchdowns in that week 1, or really over the course of the first 3 weeks here. So, might be a guy that they lean on this season. Yeah, outside of that, I mean, it's Tennessee's playing NC State, which, you know, on paper is a ranked matchup. I just like Tennessee to win that one and win it comfortably. I think Nico's just unlike anything NC State's going to see this year, I would say, outside of maybe if they play Miami, Cam Ward. Clemson's playing App State in week 2 here, and App State's going to Clemson. Never count out the Mountaineers, man. I'll tell you what, they have a way of just sneaking up on you and getting a win. Everyone knows the famous Michigan game. Everyone remembers what they did with North Carolina a couple of years ago. Always fun games there. You know, it fooled me that Kevin Barbay would actually be a good offensive coordinator. Never fallen for that again. Probably will. So that might be a fun one there with App State going to Clemson. Where are we going next? Let's go with the Big Ten. Big Ten. What do we got in the Big Ten this week? Obviously, biggest game of the week. Number 4, Texas A&M traveling to Michigan. That should be a fun one. I got Texas winning that one and winning it comfortably. I just like their team a lot better. I just don't think Michigan is nearly as good as they were last year, and Texas is every bit as good as they were last year. Outside of that, Iowa State playing Iowa, already talked about that. That one should be a fun slugfest. Maryland playing Michigan State. Maryland's actually favored by 9.5, so it wouldn't be much of a surprise. But that one could turn into a blowout with the way Michigan State looked in week 1. Kansas is playing Illinois. Probably should have hit that earlier, but Kansas only favored by 6. Luke Altmaier had 4 touchdowns in his first game this season, at least, at Illinois. He was a returning starter from last year, I want to say. So that's an interesting one. Might be worth bearing watching on that. Outside of that, obviously, I already talked about Colorado, Nebraska. Boise State's playing Oregon. Sneaky Boise State team. Oregon not looking as good as maybe we would have hoped last week. I'm staying away from it. Spread's minus 18.5, but I wouldn't blame you for taking Boise State on the spread here. That wouldn't blame me at all. Idaho just kept them within that last game. Outside of that, that's pretty much all that bears mentioning. Let's take a look at the SEC here real quick. Obviously talked about a lot of these games already. I mean, Kentucky, South Carolina might be a fun cripple fight, I suppose. Don't go watching cripple fights, folks. That's not very cash money of you if you go watch cripple fights. That's not. I mean, I don't know who's sanctioning those things either. You need Jesus if you're doing that. Ole Miss is playing Middle Tennessee, minus 41. Might be a fun game to add last minute. I just can't in good conscience put it on y'all's record here on the podcast, but I might responsibly put a few shekels on that one as well. Trying to see here what else we got. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I think we just got through the whole Power 4 there. So yeah, that's your slate for next week. Just kind of the highlights. I didn't go through all of them, obviously, just because we don't need to mention McNeese at Texas A&M. We don't even need to think about that really. But that's kind of the slate we're looking at. We're going to be adding more bets on Thursday, but with that, I don't know why I've been holding my vape here the last couple minutes, but that just kind of is what it is. With that, though, thank you so much for tuning in to this kickoff episode of the football season, man. Boy, we are back. We are so back, it hurts. I mean, it hurts my soul how back we are. I mean, except it doesn't. It makes my soul feel alive. It makes me feel awesome. It makes me feel good, in the words of Donald Sterling. Don't look up where that quote is from. With that, though, thank you so much for tuning in Unqualified Analysis. We do this thing twice a week here during the football season. Tuesdays, we got college football. Thursdays, we have got the NFL football. We're going to be doing a preview of the NFL slate coming up on this Thursday, and we're going to be handing out some bets there. Already handed out 2 of them today, and we'll just go ahead and quickly run down that, reiterate it here real quick, just so people know where we're at. We're on Colorado minus 7. We are on Texas minus 6.5. Tennessee minus 7.5 right now. We're going all favorites pretty much. All favorites here so far. We'll be adding more of those come Thursday. I love the slate this week, man. What can I say? I love the slate this week. But if you enjoyed this episode, obviously, by the way, gamble responsibly here. Let's not be going and betting the house here. I just watched Uncut Gems over the break here. Boy, don't do that. Don't do everything that Adam Sandler's character did in that movie. That was That was stressful. But if you did enjoy the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. Now's the best time to do it, folks. And yeah, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're listening to this, on whatever platform you're listening to. Go ahead, subscribe, share with a friend. We're going to have a lot of fun this football season, and we're just getting started here. So with that, I'm going to cut it off here because the energy saver just turned on my laptop, and this thing is about to die. So we're real quick. One thing that I learned this week is that, let me pull this damn thing up here for a minute. Okay, there it is. It's a well-known trend in the Olympics that the hosting country almost always has more medals than they did at the previous Olympics. Many people believe it's due to home cooking from the judges, and they're not entirely wrong on that. Right in a lot of cases, actually. It is more so due to the fact that the host country can bring in so many more athletes because they can basically enter any event they want with the team. And if you measure the rate of medals per athlete at the Olympics, the home field advantage almost completely disappears. So it's mostly just based on the fact that they have the largest Olympic team, the host country does, of any other nation. So the more you know. With that, though, I'm cutting this off. I'm going to go plug this in before it dies, and I'm going to get this thing edited. So y'all have a good one. I need to go grocery shopping. I guess you should do the same. Have a good one. See ya.